Guard us with thy mighty hand. Keep us free from evil powers. Be our light through countless hours. To our leaders, great defender, grant through wisdom from above. Justice, truth be ours forever. Jamaica, land we love. Jamaica, 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 land we love. Us true respect for all, the response to duty's call. Strengthen us, the weak to cherish. Give us visions, knowledge sent us. Heavenly Father, grant through wisdom from above. Justice, truth be ours forever. Jamaica, land we love. Jamaica, 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 land we love.
Thank you. May I invite us to remain standing? And I'll invite Ms. Shanto White, Registration Assistant for JIPO, to come forward and just open for us in prayer.
Good afternoon. Let us assume an attitude for prayer, please. Our Father art in heaven, thank you for giving us this lovely day. As the proceedings go, help us to learn something and not leave it with us, but pass it on to others and guide us as we go. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Now, I would like to invite Miss Kelsey Chambers, Manager for Programs and Public Education at the Jamaica Intellectual Property Office, to come with the welcome. Can we make her welcome as she comes?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. How are we doing this afternoon? Let me ask you again, how are we doing this afternoon? We are so happy to have you here. We, the Jamaica Intellectual Property Office, an agency of the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, is pleased to put together today for you a special masterclass entitled Sounds of Success. We have partnered with the Edna Manley College and the Jamaica Reggae Industry Association to bring this to you. We have people watching us on Zoom, so not just a live audience in front of us today, but we have stakeholders, students, public persons who are interested that joined us on Zoom. We are streaming on Facebook and also on YouTube. And it would be remiss of me if I did not start by making welcome the Dr. the Honorable Norman Dunn, Minister of State in the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce. Make him feel welcome. We are happy to have the minister with us today. We have also our illustrious list of panelists and speakers today. We have Michael Ibo Cooper. And students at Edna would be very familiar with Mr. Cooper. He's your lecturer. Famous, legendary reggae musician, founder of the Third World's Band. And he'll be sharing with us today. We also have Miss Lydia Rose, General Manager of the Jamaica Association of Composers, Authors, and Publishers, JCAP. We have Evan Mullins, General Manager of JAMS, Jamaica Music Society. We have our very own Chantal English, Deputy Director, Legal Counsel, Jamaica Intellectual Property Office. Also, Ms. Philippa Davis, Assistant General Manager from Jam Copy, will be joining us to speak later. I encourage you to listen, to learn, to take it all in, because there are some gems that will be shared here today. I will hand over to our moderator, Mr. Dixon.
Let's give her another round of applause, man. Listen, I can tell you, I am a little surprised to see that the room isn't full to capacity, as I am accustomed to coming to Edna Manley to see. Because, listen, as Jamaicans, we have to take advantage of every opportunity we have to get valuable information for free. So congratulations to those who are here. I'm going to clap on yourself, first of all. Now, I want to take as much picture and as much notes so I can go show off on the friends who were not here to get all this information. And I tell you what, I was grown by my grandmother, yeah? So things like these, she would have implored me to do. My grandmother always have every opportunity to share something with me. Anytime I can get something for free, that's my granny. I'll tell you a quick story about her, if I may. My grandmother, she's moved on to a better place. Me and she gone off foreign. But she fell ill one of the times, right? And because she's from up in the hills of St. Andrew, the family decided to take her off the hill so it would be easier for her to transport back and forth to the clinic. Now, I learned that she was in town, so I called her up and I said, Grandma, I hear you're in town and I want to come and visit you, but I'm not sure where you are. She was most willing to give me the information. She said, my grandson, they have me here at a place them called Maryvale Apartments. You're going to come there and tell the security that you're coming to Block F. Now, when you drive and come to Block F, come out of the car and come to the entrance. You will see one telephone intercom something. Use your elbow and dial 221. I will answer and let you in. Now, you're going to come to the grill and use your elbow, open the grill, come inside and go up to the elevator. When you get to the elevator, use your elbow and press the up button. The door will open and you step inside. Then you use your elbow and press the number 2. It's going to take you to the second floor. Now, when you reach, come out and turn to your right and come down to room 221. You will see it on the door. Use your elbow, knock your door. I will open the door and let you in. I said, all right, Grandma, I understand the instructions you're giving. I think I can find it. But what I'm not certain of is why we need to use my elbow for everything. She said, so then my grandson, you did plan to come here empty-handed? So always take what you can and receive what you can. All right. Now, at this time, we're going to be greeted by Dr. the Honorable Norman Dunn, Minister of State in the Ministry of Industry, Investment, and Commerce. Let's make him welcome as he comes.
I wish I had a granny like that. Good morning, everyone. It's still morning, right? Oh, it's afternoon. You see, sometimes we are in that better place, and we think that the time is within that time that we thought the place is in. So I'm normally very happy when mornings come, because I'm normally up early. I walk, say 6 o'clock in the mornings, and I prepare for my day. So I like mornings. I'm not a night person. So Ms. Chantal English, Deputy Director, Legal Counsel, Jamaica Intellectual Property Office, the legendary JIPO Cooper, and I'm very happy that I came. Months ago, I was invited by your principal, Ibo, your principal, to visit here on the lunch concerts that I think you have on Thursdays. But I was not able to be here yet, but I said not before the time. So I'm here today, but at least I get to meet this gentleman, which is the first time I meet him. I mean, I would have seen him on Third World performing. I'd have seen him in other areas, but I've never met him personally. And sometimes we have to be so grateful for the persons who have gone before us in so many ways, who have paved the pathway for us in so many ways. And I was happy that when his name was called, you all gave him a round of applause, and I wanted to do it again. Because sometimes we take these things as for granted. We are in the midst of persons like Mr. Cooper, right? I would take it for granted. I mean, people all over the world would kill to be beside him. And here we are, sometimes we take it for granted. And sir, I want to say thank you very much for all that you have done for Jamaica, that you have spread the gospel according to Jamaica around the world in the form of reggae music. And you and the stalwarts before us, whether it's, I mean, we always refer to Bob Marley, but there are so many other persons who have paved the way, and we want to show our gratitude towards you and to the others. So thank you very much, sir. Miss Lydia Rose, General Manager, Jamaica Association of Composers and Publishers, JCAP, and Evan Mullins, General Manager, Jamaica Music Society, JAMS. And I'm here also, but I want to tell you that if anybody asked me to sing, I couldn't sing to save myself. Although, I mean, at Edna Mandela, it's not just about singing, right? So I'm actually learning to play the keyboard. You know why? There's a reason, you know. Apart from, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm a lover of music the way all persons breathe and sleep and eat it, right? But I mean, it's the music is good for the soul, so it's definitely good for the soul. But I believe one of the best, and I could say one of the best politicians who was not a black man. And some person you'll be able to disagree with me, that's Bill Clinton. He could play an instrument. And whenever he goes anywhere, he would play that instrument. So, you know, he would break the ice easy. And person would automatically love him because of the affinity that he has for music and what music means to other people. So I want to learn to play the keyboard. So when I go to my constituency, I go to church, or I go to a funeral, I can just go up and start playing. And people say, boy, that politician, the body. But, I want to say thank you also to Principal Campbell and to the other distinguished persons who are here, I mean students and other visitors who are here today. It's good to be here, to be with aspiring musicians, media practitioners, generally, because again, we sometimes do not immerse ourselves as much as possible in the culture that we have. And I can tell you, we have great culture. I mean, I've traveled quite a bit, and I remember going to South Africa, and I went into a market to buy some of the craft items, and there was a gentleman that had a earpiece in his ears and was listening to music, and I walked up to his stall, and he pulled out the earpiece, and so I told him that I was interested in something that he had there. So he said, where are you from? Because he heard the accent. I said, I'm from Jamaica. And he said, you know what I'm listening? Reggae music. That's what he had in his ears, listening right here in South Africa. I've been to Panama quite a bit. I've a person who have traveled to Panama will realize that the music in Panama, the reggae music in Panama, Sometimes I think it's stronger than the Spanish music itself because they have the reggaeton. And when you walk on the street and you hear all these vehicles passing and they're playing some form of reggae music, I mean, you know, sometimes goosebumps comes on you because this small country that we have called Jamaica has gifted the world with so much genres that again we do not understand, and people would more understand it because when he travels with third world or goes across the world and you see the reaction that they have to our music, you wonder why we have not made it more than what it is today. So it's my pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to be here with you today on staging of this masterclass, Sound of Success, Intellectual Property and the Music Industry. As a Minister of State in the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, rebranded recently the Jamaica Business Ministry, I'm thrilled to participate in this important collaboration of the Jamaica Intellectual Property Office and Edna Manley School of Visual and Performing Arts and the Jamaica Reggae Industry Association. I commend all of those involved in this collaborative effort and to thank you for your vision of exploring the critical area of business operations for all musicians and intellectual property office. Now, again, and we see about that is happening more and more now. I mean, in years gone by, people would just be creators and they love what they do and they sing what they do and that's it. And they wouldn't understand how important it is to monetize this God-given talent that they have. But now we see it's happening because I don't know about Igbo, right? But nowadays, when you see those artists are going away, you think they're taking plane? Regular plane? What are they taking? What are they taking? Huh? Private jet. So people are understanding more and more that what they have is far greater than they could ever think it is. And when I see that this is happening now, I feel very pleased. Because persons must appreciate the creators of these music or creators of art or art form. Because it is not something that each of us can do. Sometimes when I see the way how they string lyrics together, I will sit down and I will say, how did they do this? I mean, you have your big degree and they have no degree. But yes, they can string music and words in such a way that it becomes so impactful to the world and you cannot do it. So persons must recognize that is of value and pay for that value as well. So the Sound of Success Masterclass is an exceptional opportunity for you to learn from the best in the industry about the business side of music and how to navigate the complexities of intellectual property rights, royalties, licenses, and copyright issue, and to use this knowledge to build successful careers and business. I'm certain that today's discussion will underscore that music is not just art. Music is more than culture. Music is a business, and indeed, music is an enterprise. So when I was here earlier, as was said, I came in early and I saw a young lady performing up here. I mean, the voice to me was a golden voice. Where is she? Yeah, she was somewhere, I don't know where she is. I mean, and it shows that you're nurturing great talents here at Edna Manley. So it's no secret that Jamaica has been blessed with abundant, talented individuals. And our responsibility as a government of Jamaica is to provide an enabling, oh there she is, an enabling environment in which talent can be nurtured and developed. To the work of the Ministry of Education and Youth and the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport, significant work is undertaken and is being undertaken every day through educational institutions, youth and community groups, as well as state agencies, including the Jamaica Cultural Development Commission, to unearth, develop, and showcase the extraordinary talents of our Jamaicans, our music, and our musicians, poets, writers, theater professionals are all cultural ambassadors for Jamaica, promoting our music and culture, not just locally but worldwide, while more and more creating new opportunities for economic growth. I was listening to a program on, just for a short while, on Profile last night, and I think they were featuring the gentleman at Ashe, right? And what he said, which struck me, that, you know, persons, and he was giving accolades to the people who perform generally, and he said, but there's one set of persons that sometimes people miss, and it's the ones in the background. So this, the person setting up the stage, the person stringing up the wires. People tend to forget those persons. And I hope that as time goes by, when you become performers yourself, please remember these persons. So in Jamaica, the business ministry, which I'm a part of, and particularly with the help of JIPO, we are ready to assist managers and to assist persons in managing intellectual property, critical to our musicians' business success over the long term. Jamaican music is more than a cultural expression. It is also a valuable commodity that has the potential to drive our economic growth. I was saying someone, I think I might have this discussion with Yvonne before, and maybe Lydia, about Jamaica. Jamaica, as far as I'm concerned, I think many persons share the view we are really the cultural capital of the Caribbean. There's no doubt about that. But I know COVID would have slowed us a little bit. I mean, it would have given us new forms of expression or how to promote your business. But what I would love to see is that Jamaica, we just completed Reggae Month for February, right? Well, we're still in February, so I'm about to complete Reggae Month. And I've been to some of the shows. But I wouldn't mind to see a music activity every month. So every month there's a major show here in Jamaica. We don't just wait for Dream Weekend and Reggae Some Fest and etc. No. And Rebel Salute. If Jamaica is the cultural capital, then we should have one every single month. Let it become one of those venues on the itinerary of the world, that they know they can go to Jamaica this part of this time of this year and plan for it so that we can continue showcasing the talents that we have here in Jamaica. So, as a people and as an industry, we must of necessity view this as a business. We must explore all existing commercialization opportunities that exist. Songwriters and musicians need to protect their intellectual property. Our songwriters, musicians must recognize the value of their intellectual property, must learn how to harness it for their wealth and the wealth and benefit of the nation. And yes, must take steps to protect their intellectual property in their own effort to secure your own future. Bob Marley, of course, the original gong, sang one good thing about music. When it hits you, you feel no pain. But music can be a source of inspiration, comfort, and solace. But I encourage you, young, talented musicians, to see your craft as being more than just contributing to the creative industries. You live in a digital age. Many tools exist at your disposal to monetize the God-given talents that you have and which you continue to nurture here at Edna Manley College of Visual and Performing Arts. Monetize your talent. Let your music make money for you and help you to secure your future and the future of your own children. Beyond creating the music and performing arts, how can you ensure that this music makes money and not just makes someone feel good in a party or encourage them after a heartbreak? So even as technology expands, and with it, the ease of sharing material and access by people all over the world, creatives must heed the word of caution. How do you ensure that your efforts to monetize and manage so that those who seek to steal your intellectual property encounters roadblocks? Use technology, engage legal expertise, but don't do it alone. With regularity, sometimes persons want to do everything by themselves. It doesn't work, you know. Partnership is the best thing you could ever, because everybody comes with your own sphere of expertise and allow you to develop that into a wholesome whole that you'll benefit much more. So, with regularity, people download music to incorporate in their videos and YouTube programs. Enhance your own initiatives, but often not forgetting that other creatives is not benefiting because they have not done the right thing by them. Explore digital watermarking, fingerprinting technologies. Identify and track your copyright materials that you have put online. There's a gentleman in my constituency, an elderly gentleman came to me and told me that he had some music on YouTube. So I said, are you making money from it? And he said, no. I said, all right, show me the links or whatever. I mean, he has not been able to show me the link up to now because I want to refer him to JIPO. Because he's there in his deep rural community creating these talents and maybe uploading them somehow, but not finding a way to track what he's doing. And therefore he's making nothing from it. Those people need to understand that if you don't track and trace, you will not be able to collect. So license your music, and through this process be paid for creative work. So like international names, create and offer merchandise for sale and add to your income. And we saw it, the first time I saw it was with Vibes Cartel. When he was singing the music and then he started making what the rum is? Right. Street vibes. Right? And other merchandise, because some person do not realize that they become an icon by themselves, and there's so many other ways they could monetize those things. So, very importantly though, engage legal support. Utilize the service available through JIPO, which you'll all hear about today, or from lawyers who are adept of entertainment and media as you proceed. If and when your rights have been infringed, explore a lawsuit, of course, to protect that which you have created and from which you should gain financially. So as we gather here to recognize Reggae Month, it is clear that Jamaican music is a cultural treasure that transcends boundaries and connects people from all walks of life and across the globe. Jamaica has given birth and is the home of some of the most iconic musicians in the world. Of course, we all know about Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, etc., etc. And of course, I have a Cooper right here. But certainly there are many others. So while these legends may have gone, and their legacy lives on, and has been transformed in some cases into multi-million-dollar empires, largely thanks to the protection offered by their intellectual property and by, least we overlook, careful, prudent management. Some entertainers want to be managers on their own. Maybe you're good at it, but maybe it's best that you concentrate on the creatives that you have and allow the talent to be managed by others. But of course, you have to choose very well. You just need to look at the Marley legacy. Today, not only is Marley music still played heavily, but Marley iconic brand is undoubtedly one of the most popular coming out of Jamaica, rivaled only by Usain Bolt to this day. But Marley memorabilia is sought after by Jamaicans and foreigners alike. So as people, we have yet to fully capitalize on the economic potential of our music. Today, with the Sound of Success Masterclass, We are moving in the right direction by assertion on economic value of our cultural work based on empirical data. UNESCO study entitled Mapping Jamaica's Cultural and Creative Industry estimates that Jamaica's cultural and creative industries contribute about 5.2% of GDP, generated about $2.2 billion each year, and accounting for about 3% of the employment. Now, the Sound of Success Masterclass will provide some of the key tools and resources necessary for you to do so. Our music and culture are unique, and we must share this with the world. So I implore you to take the knowledge gained here today from the masterclass and use it to export your talent. And there's something that, I don't know how many persons here use Chat GPT. How many persons uses it? So today, right, I mean, so I would have been, like most of us ministers, would have been prepared for the engagements that we are asked to be present at. But I wanted to do an experiment to see the material that I was given to use, how that material would play or stack if you stack it by Chat GPT. So I just have to give a little portion of what Chat GPT said. It says, the music industry has undergone significant change in recent years, driven by advancement in digital technology and the internet. Digital music distribution platforms such as Spotify, Apple Music, and Tidal have all made it easier than ever for consumers to access and listen to music. However, this has also led to widespread piracy and unauthorized distribution of copyrighted material. In addition, the rise of music user-generated content platforms such as YouTube has made it difficult for artists to control how their music is used and distributed online. And it goes on and on. The point I'm making is that these digital tools are at your disposal. ChatGPT could write the entire speech that I present today. So you have a music, or you have an idea in your head that you want as a music. So you want to sing about the legends of Third World and Ibo Cooper. And if you type that into ChatGPT, it could give you almost everything you'd ever get while not doing a proper research. And it has become and will become an issue for Principal Campbell and others in institutions, because when you're asked to write these essays and papers, then instead they do all the research yourself to get all the full background information, you can use that and get almost the immediate paper you want to submit. And that is where the education will now have to adapt, because it will be here and more will come. AI is a part of the future, there's no doubt about that. But education institution now, and some places are actually banning it, but they will have to find new tools now to deal with that. Just like how you have Turnitin and all those things that you use for to prevent plagiarism, etc. You might have new tools coming up that you can use to decide on that. So I want to say congratulations to JIPO and the team here for putting this together today. And I see some, should I call rastas? Musicians, I in the audience. And of course, I always say, because I'm affiliated with cannabis, I always say we have to give them so much credit for maintaining our culture, our food, what we have here in Jamaica against all odds, because they and their forefathers have suffered so much, not just in Jamaica but in other places of the world. And we have to give credit to the Rastafarian community for holding strain in a number of ways on how we express ourselves generally. So thank you very much, sir, and good afternoon, everyone.
Thanks again to our minister for greeting us, the Honorable Norman Dunn. Let's give him another round of applause. All right, so now we're going to be having our first presentation of the day. This will be an overview of intellectual property rights in Jamaica, specifically copyright and its implications for music. And this will be by Ms. Chantal English, Deputy Director, Legal Counsel for JIPO. Let's make her welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. I want to especially recognize our minister this afternoon, Dr. the Honorable Norman Dunn, Minister of State in the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, and our collective management organizations, managers who are represented here this afternoon, Ms. Lydia Rose, Mr. Evan Mullins, and Mr. Ibo Cooper. We're so happy. Crave your indulgence while my microphone is adjusted due to my height, as you all can see. Thank you. Much better. Thank you so much. Our director, Ms. Deleclaire Bellamy, is actually on travel duty in Geneva, Switzerland, and she apologizes for not being here this afternoon, but she is in great support of this event, and she has worked assiduously to make it what it is today. So we just want to also acknowledge Team JIPO for the great work that they have done. And she's online watching, even though she's chairing a committee. So we are so happy that she's online as well. Just want to also acknowledge the principal, Interim Principal Campbell, and Dean Andre Adman, and Director of Studies Bergen, yes. I hope I do not do too much damage to the name. All right, so we're looking at an overview of intellectual property rights in Jamaica. So, JIPO is an agency of the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, and we were established in January 2001. Right. We are responsible for the administration of intellectual property laws in Jamaica, public education, registration of trademarks, designs, patents, and geographical indications, and the voluntary deposit of copyright and related rights. Now, I know this is a master class, and I like a little engagement. So, and I also have a prize. So, when you think of intellectual property, what comes to mind? Protecting your work, music, your ideas. Excellent. So, intellectual property defines the creation of the mind. So, whatsoever the mind can think of, there is some element of intellectual property associated with it. So, around this room, there are elements of intellectual property. So, for those who are wearing, well, we're all wearing sandals, there are some elements of intellectual property associated with the shoes that you're wearing, with the watches that you have on your hand. Intellectual property. Those of us who are wearing glasses, intellectual property. The remote control I have in my hand to change the slides, intellectual property. The very moment that you go to bed at night, intellectual property greets you when you go on your bed. There's a sheet on it. There's some elements of design. When you wake in the morning and you decide to switch your light switch on, intellectual property. You decide to turn your music, the radio on to listen to some music, intellectual property. You decide to have your breakfast, intellectual property. So it meets you everywhere. Intellectual property is something that you cannot escape. It is everywhere. It is all around this room because, as we said, intellectual property defines the creation of the mind. And so we cannot do without intellectual property. I like that feedback. I hear amen. Almost as though we're in church, but yes, intellectual property is everywhere. We cannot do without it. And so because of that, we have to have that appreciation of it. So it is a legal right which results from intellectual activities in the scientific, literary, and musical and dramatic field. So, okay, sure, I did not hear that. Sorry about that. So, intellectual property is a legal right, as you can see on the screen. So, it results from intellectual activities in the scientific, industrial, literary, musical, and dramatic fields. When we talk about intellectual property, it can be divided in different areas. So we have industrial property. Industrial property takes into consideration designs, patents, trademarks, and geographical indications. So design. Design protects the appearance of a product. Let me see those persons who are wearing a watch this afternoon. You're wearing a watch? Okay, so there are some elements of design associated with your watch. The chair that your seats that you're sitting on, that's also some elements of design, because the one that you're sitting on is different from the one that at the head table. Do you see that? Okay, great. And for those who are familiar with the Coca-Cola, the old Coca-Cola bottle, you realize that it changes over time. Design changes in shape. So design protects the appearance of a product. And patents protects new inventions. So there was a time when there were no computers, no smartphones, and someone had a great idea of creating cell phones, creating computers, so we can have access to information anywhere we are in the world. There was a time when our great-grandparents or grandparents had to sit in the libraries using the textbooks because they could not access information readily. But today, with someone who had a great idea, creating the computer, creating the phones, it allows us to access information. And the other IP area under industrial property, trademarks. Before I continue, I'm going to ask another question. Trademarks. When you think of trademarks, what comes to your mind? Branding, logos, right? So even as music students, you want to create your brand. You want to be able to be identified differently from one singer, one musician. So you have your unique elements. So you want to protect that, right? Usually, you'll have a logo, right? For those of you who are in the music industry and other industries. So trademark protects names, right? Excellent. So it protects names, logos, and brands. It's a sign that can be graphically represented. Can you imagine your name can be protected as a trademark? Yes. And we also have geographical indications. Now, geographical indications, they protect goods that have a specific geographical origin and possesses certain qualities and reputation that are attributable to a particular region. So when we think of geographical indication, for example, when we travel, persons are always asking about Jamaica rum, yes, and also the music, the reggae music too, but Jamaica rum in terms of geographical indication is protected, and our Jamaica jerk. Now we have another area which is copyright and related rights, which is the focus of today's discussion. So copyright and related rights, and there's also traditional knowledge. Traditional knowledge protects the know-how, the skills, and the practices that have developed, sustained, and passed on from one generation to the other. So if it is that you're having a cold, what are some of the things that you will take? Some remedy. Some ginger and honey and lime and white Roman. All right, Roman ganja says he will. So over time, you know, your past generation, say your great-grandmother would have told her child and it passes down from generation to generation, those things are also considered to be intellectual property, know-how, technical know-how. And it's also important, so even though you may know that it is the ginger and the honey, there is also a particular method of how you're going to mix it up together to give you that remedy, to get it to where it ought to be so that you can be well. So copyright and related rights. So when we talk about copyright, is it the right to copy? Certainly not. And we all know that Jamaica music sweet, right? So I'm going to ask you to grab a pen and paper as we learn more about copyright. And can anyone identify who is on the screen? Yes, Prince Buster. And Prince Buster is associated with which kind of music? Ska. Excellent. So what is copyright? So Section 6.1 of the Copyright Act of Jamaica states that copyright is a property right. So similar to your house and your car, you can do anything that you want to do with your house, right? What are some of the things you can do with your house? You can paint. Yes, certainly you can paint it. You have control over it to do anything you want to do. But what else can you do with your house, your property? You can? You can rent, you can sell. Excellent. So you have that control over your real property, and so you also have that control over your intellectual property. Right. So it all depends on the contractual situation. So remember, all circumstances not the same. Remember, when we're talking today, we're not talking in a vacuum or one size meets all. So it depends on the circumstance and the situation that arises. All right? With everything. So copyright is the legal right which allows creators of their creative works to be able to reproduce their work, to distribute their work, to perform their work, to adapt their work, and that means that you're taking your work from one format to the other, to communicate and to make your work available to the public, which is to make your work available on demand and to make your work available on the internet. So when talking about related rights, now, related rights, they resemble copyright, but they serve to protect a different interests. So the purpose of these related rights is to protect the legal interests of those persons and legal entities who contribute to making the work available to the public. Now, that's a mouthful. So, for example, I am excellent at writing, but when it comes down to singing, I don't think I'm the best in that area. And so I have the wonderful lyrics, but I need somebody to bring it to life. Somebody needs to come out and perform it, and then my work is now, being showcased. And so performers' rights or related rights. Everybody good? Great. So examples of performers: dancers, singers, producers of sound recordings, and broadcasting companies. Those are some examples of performers. Copyright protection extends to the following categories of work, and these can be found in Section 6.1 of the Copyright Act of Jamaica. So the first category: literary, dramatic, musical, artistic works. Then there are sound recordings, films, broadcasts, cable programs, and typographical arrangements of published editions. So these are all, as I said, legal rights that you have. So qualifications for copyright. Copyright arises automatically. So if you woke this morning at 3 o'clock and you felt so inspired and decided to write some lyrics, as at 3 o'clock this morning, you receive automatic protection. So the work must be written or recorded. So you can't have the great idea and the idea is in your head. It needs to be translated to be on paper or recorded. It's also recommended that you use a formal notice. The formal notice is the copyright symbol, so it's the C in the circle, your name, and the date of creation. That tells the entire world that the work belongs to you. And so I'm going to look at a few protected works. I am cognizant of the time, so I'm going to move a little faster. So there is literary works. And so the literary work includes any work other than a dramatic or musical work, which is written, spoken, or sung, and includes written tables or a compilation or even a computer program. So let me see the hands of those persons who have ever done any literary work based on this definition. I think other hand, or everyone should be raising your hand. I'm sure you'd have written something, right, that is original to you, right? So what about musical work? Based on definition, musical work is a work consisting of music exclusive of any words or actions intended to be sung, spoken, or performed with the music. So we're talking about notes and rhythms and so forth. Show of hands? Excellent. We also have sound recordings. So it's a recording of sounds from which sounds may be reproduced, and this is directly from the legislation, Section 2 of the Copyright Act of Jamaica. Or a recording of the whole or a part of a literary, dramatic, or musical work from which sounds reproducing the work or parts may be produced. Copyright does not protect ideas, concepts, procedures, or methods. Copyright protects the original expression of the idea. So you can have a great idea and, you go around telling everybody, oh, this is my idea. But unless you physically put it on paper or recorded, then you are not protected. So remember that. And if you have your great ideas, remember to not go around and be disclosing all your ideas to everyone. Put it in writing. Yes. Yes, because they're the ones that took that necessary step. They went a step further. So yes, you have the idea, but you need to put it in writing. And as I said before, you receive automatic protection once your idea is expressed in writing. But there are additional safeguards that can be implemented, which I'm going to touch soon.
When you say recorded or written work, does it have to be recorded in a professional sense?
No, just recorded. Even your phone, using your phone, once recorded. All right? So the work shall not be eligible for protection unless it is in a tangible format, which I mentioned, writing, recorded. Now, copyright owners, they have certain rights. So a copyright owner, they have a moral right and an economic right. The moral right is the right attached to the owner or the owners, because you can have joint authorship, right? So the moral right is the right attached to the copyright owners, which allow the authors or author to be identified with the work. So once you create your work, you want to be identified with your work, and that is a right that is cannot be transferred to anyone else. It is your work, you are the one that has created it. So your moral right stays with you. And you also have the right not to have your work treated in a derogatory manner. So that means is that, say for example, you see a photograph, but you decide you don't like a part of it, you decide you want to crop out piece and just keep a piece. Yes, I see some smiling faces. We've done it, but it's not right. So we don't want to distort a person's work and create a new work, because that's what you'll be doing. So do not treat others working in that way, or not to have a work falsely attributed to you as the author. So there's no way you would have written something on a particular topic or content, but you see your name on that. Okay. So time is against me, moving a little bit faster. So another right is an economic right. And this is the right that everyone loves. Why do you think so? Why do you think so? Money. Once money is involved, we all get excited, right? Yes. So the owner of the copyright in a work shall have the exclusive right to do or to authorize others to do any of the following acts. So to copy the work, to issue the work to the public, to perform the work, to broadcast the work, to make the work available. Right? So these are all the rights that the copyright owner has. And so that would bring them their money because they're making use of their work. Now, there are different terms of protection for the different categories of work. So for literary, musical, dramatic, and artistic work, it's the life of the author and 95 years after death. Now, 95 years after death seems to be a long time, right? Life plus 95 years. This was recently amended in 2015 with the Copyright Amendment Act of 2015. Now, it also means that you can leave your intellectual property in your last will and testament. So that's something to consider when, for those of us who have created wills or will be creating your will, consider if it is that you have any intellectual property rights and ensure that those are also made mention or you have selected individuals in your will to receive that aspect of your property. Sound recordings, films, broadcast, cable programs, 95 years from the end of the year in which they were made available to the public. No, ownership of copyrights. Okay. And there is also, thank you, there's also typographical arrangements of published editions, and that is 50 years from the year in which the edition was first published. That looks at the layout of the work. Now, who owns the copyrights in our work? Section 22(1) of the Copyright Act of Jamaica states that, subject to the provisions of this section, the author of the protected work is the first owner of any copyright in the work, unless there is an agreement to the contrary. So unless you have an agreement that states otherwise, the person who creates the work is considered to be the owner of the work. Now, what happens if I infringed on copyright? So Section 31 of the Copyright Act of Jamaica states that copyright is infringed by any person who, without a license, the copyright owner does in relation to that work any of the acts that the copyright owner has the exclusive right to do pursuant to Section 9. Do you remember any of the Section 9 rights, the economic rights? Any? Two? Okay, excellent. So I'm going to give you a little pop socket for that. So you've been taking notes? Yes. So give him a round of applause as he comes. Right. So he mentioned the Section 9 rights, which is to copy the work, issue the work to the public, distribute the work, make an adaptation of the work, make the work available on demand, which is to make the work available on the internet. Right? So anyone who infringes the copyright in a work can be penalized by way of a fine, depending on the jurisdiction of the court, or even imprisonment. Yes. Sorry? Okay, so Jamaica is a party to the Berne Convention for the Protection of Literary and Artistic Works. It's an 1886 convention. And so once there are a number of countries who are contracting parties. So the work, all the works that we have. So if, for example, you wrote a poem in Jamaica, your work is also covered in Barbados and all the other contracting states who are party to the Berne Convention. Right. Mhm. What areas are you talking about specifically? Because one of the things is that we are a part of the World Intellectual Property Organization, which is WIPO, and we are always trying to put things in place to ensure that persons receive the necessary protection. One of the things that we recognize as well is that though persons are creating work, they're not doing anything as well to enforce, to ensure that their work is safeguarded, to ensure that in the event of an infringement, they have the sufficient evidence. It's always about your words against my words. What do you have as your proof to show that it is your work and you have done necessary put the necessary things in place to ensure that in the event that someone infringes, that you can take action. All right, no problem. I will continue. So, if it is that there are any of the offenses, the Section 9 offenses, there are damages, which is money, that you can hinder or prevent someone from continuing to infringe your copyright or accounts for profits. And for the criminal aspect, if it is a person sells or hire for sale, import, distribute any infringing copy, the legislation provides for up to 5 years imprisonment or a fine if convicted in the Supreme Court, or 2 years and a fine or $100,000 at the magistrate court. With everything, there are exceptions. So, fair dealing. So you may be able to reproduce the copyrighted works for a limited purpose of research or private study, educational purposes, criticism and review, reporting of current events, and this is covered under Section 52 and 53 of the Copyright Act. And today you will hear a little from the collective management organizations. You will hear from Jam Copy, JCAP, and JAMS, and they will speak a little bit more about who they are as collective management organizations in Jamaica and how important it is to also visit them to get more information about your copyright. So in 2015, the Copyright Act was amended to allow for the voluntary deposit of copyrights. Now, before 2015, people would constantly call to us, how do I protect my copyright in a work? And the answer would be copyright protection arises automatically. And people would be like, and that's it? So we live in a society that we like to have something in our hands, right? We like to have something. We like to have a piece of paper. And so in 2015, in response to the general public inquiries, and we have the voluntary copyright register, which an individual can deposit with us, a minimal fee, so creators can utilize this register and deposit their work. And they'll receive a certificate upon completing the application process, and this certificate can be used as supporting evidence in court should the work be infringed. So just to show you that there are persons who are utilizing the system. So literary work, we had over 544 literary work deposited. Musical work between April to January 2023, and musical work 31, and sound recordings 313. So we do have persons utilizing the voluntary copyright register. Now, how do you access the voluntary copyright register? You will be required to complete an application form, declare the title of your work, the date of creation, And date of publication, it must be witnessed by a justice of the peace, a pastor, a doctor, or a lawyer. And a declaration form must be accompanied as well, because you're declaring to us that you are the author or the owner of the work in question, and you deposit a copy of the work with us, and we keep that work on our register for the term of protection. Now, just to wrap up, intellectual property is very valuable, and once you have your great ideas, put them in writing. Do not just go around sharing them, but remember that it must be expressed in a tangible format for you to receive that protection. And in the same manner that you want to protect your work, you also want to respect the works of others. And so seek permission, ensure that you have the necessary license to use people's work. And thirdly, register your work with the Jamaica Intellectual Property Office. Doesn't have to just be limited to the copyright, which we focus on today, but also the other IP areas that I gave you an overview of. So thank you so much for listening. I know that the time is well spent, so if it is that there are any questions that you have, I urge you to, at the end, we can answer more questions, and if it is that they're still not answered and there are more questions, you can call us or send us an email. I'll be happy to assist. Thank you so much.
All right, let's give another round of applause to Miss Chantal English for that informative session. All right, so I know sometimes don't sit down for too long and take in information. We kind of get a little, uneasy or lethargic or whatever it may be. So we're going to lively up the room a little bit with a performance from the students here at the Edna Manley College of the Visual and Performing Arts.
Check.
Welcome again to year one, pop class. During this year, the students are taken through a year of mentor to dance hall. First year pop class is taken through everything from mentor to dance hall. Today we're going to produce for you two genres. First of all, here comes a rock steady tribute.
Wonder if one day that you say that you care, if you say you love me gladly, I gladly be there like a puppet on a string. I'll be just like a merry-go-round with all the fun in the air. One day I'm feeling down in the ground, then I look in the air. Why you leaving me, oh? When you call out, will you be gone? Wonder if you say that you care, if you say you love me gladly, I gladly be there like a puppet on a string. Ah.
No, come on, let's give them another round of applause. That was a lovely trip down memory lane. Boy, just a miss that NJIT, man. Boy, but the program must go on. All right, so thank you again to, is this the first year students, Sir Ibo? All right, wonderful. Give them another round of applause now, man. All right, so we're going to delve into some more information. This is another presentation, and this will be understanding rights and royalties of producers and performers. So to make this presentation, let's make welcome Mr. Evan Mullings, the General Manager for Jamaica Music Society JAMS, composers, authors, and publishers. Come on the clap till the man reach, man. Don't get tired yet.
All right, so mic test 1 3. All right. Afternoon, everybody. All right, so just a quick note. It's actually, so it's JAMS, Jamaica Music Society. We represent record producers and performers. Just a slight correction on the program, because I see you have at the end here composers, authors, and publishers. That's a remit of JCAP. And so for those of you who are looking at the program, you can just make that mental note, because Miss Lydia Rose will also emphasize that as well when she gets up here. So we are Jamaica Music Society, JAMS, full stop. All right, so let me just quickly acknowledge, well, our minister has left us, but I want to acknowledge, of course, other members of the head table, Miss Lydia Rose, General Manager for JCAP, Mr. Ibo Cooper. Mr. Cooper's title runs so long I won't even start to or begin calling those titles. But certainly a stalwart, of course, in his field. And of course, Ms. Chantal English, who is the Deputy Legal Counsel or Deputy Executive Director of JIPO, Dean of the Faculty, Mr. Andre Adman, and the gentleman whose name we seem to not be able to pronounce. But Gert Baines. All right, so there you have it. All right, so Miss English has really laid the foundation, a really fine foundation for me to lay down what I think will be something very important for you as students and also for those persons online who are tuned in at the moment. My focus will be on the rights of producers and performers. Ms. Rose, I'm sure, will be focusing on songwriters, composers, and publishers. And all these different categories of creators and contributors that we're speaking of, they're very important in the overall process. But certainly, they would not be the entirety of those who are involved in the creation of music. But the ones we're going to speak to are largely the ones who would have the right to intellectual property rights. Let's put it that way. And so where it pertains to record producers and performers, Ms. English spoke to about 5 to 6 different categories of economic rights. And that is where I want to start. There's a right to reproduce or to make copies. And I know the gentleman won a prize, so he could almost reel it off again for me. But the right to make copies, the right to distribute, the right to publicly perform the work, which is separate and apart from the right to broadcast the work, the right to adapt, to make an adaptation of the work, and also the right to make available, meaning make it available on the internet. So these are economic rights which the Copyright Act makes available to the creators of works. And when we speak about creators of works, we're talking about, of course, the songwriters, composers. They too have these rights. These are called exclusive rights. They're economic rights and they're exclusive rights, meaning that as the creator of the work, you can actually prevent persons from using the work unless they have your permission to use the work in a particular manner. That's what makes it exclusive. Now, in our context, of course, there are CMOs, for instance, collecting societies, JAMS, JCAP, which are intermediaries that are there to enable access for persons who want to use the work with permission. So you don't always have to try and find the actual creator yourself. So you like a nice piece of work that was made and released, say, in Germany or the US and so forth. You do not have to take it upon yourself. As a radio station who wants a license to play this sound recording, you do not have to try and seek out and get permission from all the various creators and the producer and the musicians and everybody involved. Yes? The role of the intermediary is to facilitate that access, right? And so even though it's an exclusive right, there are mechanisms established in the industry to enable ease of access for the use of the work. Now, before I proceed any further, I want to spend a minute just looking at the definition of producer that we're going to be using. There are different types of producers. There are different types of or different notations that they're called. There's a studio producer. There's a music producer. There's an executive producer. Which producer are we referring to? Right? Which producer are we referring to? We use the word very loosely when we say producer. But for our purposes, we want to focus on the person who would have taken on the role of bringing together the various elements. They have identified the artist, they probably have a studio or they're renting studio, they're paying for the mixing engineer, the mastering engineer. They're the ones who would have taken on the initiative to get a recording done, for instance. They're bringing the elements together, and more often than not, they are also the one that they're taking the financial risk. They're the ones who are financing the production of the work. Executive producer is what they are called. And so when we speak of the producer, we're generally referring to the executive producer in this particular context, being the one who, by virtue of that role that he has performed, or she, that person now owns what we call the master right. Having taken on those functions, that person owns the master right. Something very important, and we'll look on it a little further. So it's not the studio producer or the music producer who might have been hired by, say, the record label or the studio to undertake certain functions, the technical functions of the studio sessions, for instance, or give creative direction. It's not that particular producer that we're referring to. That producer was hired and is therefore paid a fee for his services in studio. He may, however, be one and the same. So if you're the person who's doing all of that, then you're one and the same and you're entitled to the master right. But if you are simply hired to carry out work in the studio for the session, you are a music producer, studio producer, and you're not entitled automatically to any right to the recording. All right? So we're talking about, when we say record producer from here on for this session, we're talking about the executive producer, the owner of the master rights. Now, part of what I'm supposed to be doing is mapping for you the rights and royalties of that particular producer. Now, we spoke earlier about those exclusive rights. So those are the rights that they have. These are the economic rights that they have, the producer has. Now, how do the royalties come about and where do these royalties come from? Okay, sure. By that definition and that description of activities, then you would fall in that category of an executive producer. All right, because you've taken on the initiative, you have brought the elements together, you've paid for studio time, you've bought the rhythm, or you brought musicians together to create that rhythm for you. You've probably ended up getting it mixed and mastered and released and marketed. Then you are also an executive producer on top of your other function as a songwriter as well, right? So in our industry, quite commonly, you will have one person wearing so many different caps. So it's very important for us to understand these different definitions and know at all times what cap you're wearing when you're speaking, right? And so in terms of now mapping the flow of royalties, when you speak of a producer or the master rights owner, I want to start by looking at, for instance, the fact that he has what is called the right to distribute. So this producer, this master rights owner, which can be an individual or it can be an entity, so it could be a record label. The producer can be a record label, an entity, or a record company, more properly also. Or it could be just that individual who's an artist who's self-producing. Or just an individual who's becoming an entrepreneur and is taking on these functions because he likes being in the business. He wants to be a producer. So a producer is not always an individual. It could also be an entity, right? And so now that you have produced the recording, you're now going to release the recording. And so you have the right to distribute. So we're taking that right from the list of 6. He has the right to distribute. So he now finds a digital distributor or a traditional distributor. And he gets the work out. It gets placed on all the retail platforms, Spotify, etc., Rhapsody, etc., all of the retail platforms online. And if he's still fortunate, maybe he can find 1 or 2 physical locations, stores, where he wants to put some copies in if he actually makes physical copies. So he has a right to distribute. And so he goes ahead and he does that. And from that distribution that he has taken on, he will then be entitled to a flow of royalties coming through to him via the digital distributor or via the distributor, full stop. So Spotify will send the money to the distributor or through probably several different intermediaries in that process. And the distributor would then end up paying the producer his share or her share of monies from that sale, whether it's going to be from a digital download or from a streaming activity which has taken place. So that is one flow or one channel through which the producer would be earning. Another would be, of course, making copies. So we spoke about distribution, we talk about making copies also. Now this would be covered, for instance, and first and foremost, if we are looking at making physical copies, if we still do that. So in the days of vinyl and CDs, of course, that is easy to wrap your minds around. Copies are made. He's made copies of those. And so he can then move on, of course, to distributing it in physical form. But in today's world, most of it is a digital file that you're now making copies of. So the whole distribution process takes on that characteristic. So each time you stream, each time you download, a copy is being made, literally. And so, again, the right to copy is being exploited, and the right to distribute, those rights are being exploited. Now we can move on very quickly to other rights. The right of public performance. Who can give me an idea what that is or what that entails? All right, somebody said stage show. Who said stage show? Somebody said stage show. All right, stage show is a good example, but I'm going to refine that answer. Because when we speak about a stage show, I think you're probably alluding to a live performance. Now, I'm really happy you raised that because it allows me to explain something further. When we talk about the right of the producer and the right of the performer that we're coming to, we're talking about rights that belong to them, and these rights, however, exist only in the recorded work. So not live performance. The rights of the producer and the performer lies in the recorded work. So after the studio session has been completed, it's mixed and mastered, the producer's right is wrapped up, and the performer's rights are wrapped up in that recorded work. When the performer sings on stage, there's no right in the Copyright Act for the performer from that live performance. There are some footnotes to that. So if it is recorded, if that live performance is recorded, then rights again now kick in that recorded work. But suffice to say for now, producers' rights and performers' rights are embodied in the recorded work, not live performance. Right? So public performance, just to catch on to that, has to do with the use of the recorded work in various formats. So it could be that same concert or that stage show, but it's when the recorded work is being played. So during the band breaks or before when the sound system is playing, the recorded work is being played. Or in a banking hall as background music, or in a doctor's office, or in a club, in the elevator. So wherever you can think of, in the pharmacies, in the supermarkets, wherever you can think of or identify recorded music being played, that is what we call a public performance. So public performance is really when it happens outside of what we call the domestic circle, right? So someone is going to ask a question now, and I'm going to preempt you. House parties. Do I have to get permission when I'm having a house party? And the answer is yes, but let me qualify that. A house party, if you are having a house party and that house party, a birthday party, is outside of the usual domestic circle, so it's no longer just mommy, brother, sister, etc., who lives in the household. If you've expanded that list to now include your neighbors and persons down the street, you're now in the realm of public performance. There's an audience beyond their immediate family circle that would have resided customarily there. You're now in the realm of public performance because there's an audience involved beyond the domestic circle. And so that is what makes it qualify and requires no permission, a permit. And truth is not just from JAMS and JIPO anymore, but also the parish council and the police, right? So that is what makes it a public performance. And so the dances, the round robins, etc., these all qualify as public performances. And then we jump quickly to broadcasting. So that's another one that was mentioned in the list of 6. Broadcasting. This has to do with the use of the recorded music by radio, TV, cable channels, etc. All of these operators require a license. Because remember, the rights are exclusive. They have to get permission to use it. And so they would get a license from us, the collecting societies, which are the intermediaries, representing the rights owners and rights holders. Right? And so by virtue of issuing these permits to party promoters, to club owners, and these licenses to business operators such as the radio stations and so forth, these permits and these licenses attract a fee. So you have to pay for it. You have to pay for the use. And these fees that come in are then paid out as royalties to the rights owner, and rights owners, for the use of your work. So we're talking about the flow of royalties for producers. So I hope you're following me very keenly. All right. I see a hand, and I'm also mindful of time at the same time. Right. Well, let me take the question quickly because we may not get to...
Please use the mic. Okay, so my question is, if it is that a permit is required and you have to pay for that permit, and it then goes into royalties for the artist, is it that you need to specify which songs will be played when you get the permit? Because how do they decide which artists receive these royalties from that specific event?
Okay. And that's a big question. That's a huge question. It's a common question, though. The license that we issue to an event organizer is what we would consider to be a blanket license. So beforehand, we would not know what you're going to play. Oftentimes, you do not even know what's going to be played during that 8-hour session or whatever the case is. So it's a blanket license that you get from us, which gives you permission to play, for your DJ, to play pretty much any recording that he wants to from the catalog of recordings that is administered by us, which covers millions of not just local, but international catalog as well. So you are protected because we are giving you a license that says all of the recordings, the millions and millions of recordings, local and globally, that is administered by us, you have permission to play from any recording from that without a risk of liability. So you do not have to know in advance what you're going to play. But we tend to go further than that in terms of how we distribute royalties. We're able to use different mechanisms, of course, to distribute, because what we do as collecting societies, we're talking about decades of very well-established practices internationally. So in Jamaica here, we're not the only ones doing this. This is something that is done internationally, meaning they're representing producers, performers, songwriters. There are collecting societies internationally that have been operating for decades. And so there have been developed policies, practices which guide our functions and how we collect and how we distribute those funds. And if time allowed, we could have gotten more into that. But suffice to say, there are mechanisms that allows us to identify what is played and how it gets paid out. Afterwards, we can always maybe get into it if time allows, right? And so as I wrap up and I run through a few more aspects of my presentation, there were other economic rights, public performance, broadcasting, etc., and making available, which is having it online as well. Those are all avenues through which royalties can flow and will flow. But you have to take the necessary steps to protect yourself, to register, so that when the works are used, you are part of a system, you're part of an international structure that facilitates the flow of royalties back to you. So you can't just release a recording and that's it. You put it on YouTube or you send it out to the radio station. If you have not then made it available to a distributor, you're losing out right there. If you have not registered with a collecting society or collecting societies, depending on your capacities, you're losing out right there. And so it's very important that you take those steps as well as being part of how you benefit from the rights that you have. We haven't mentioned performers in any great detail. I spent some time on producers. But performers, likewise, they have these similar rights. Except that for performers, and I want you to lend me your ears very carefully, for performers, Miss English, for performers, the rights are fairly similar to the rights of producers. Performers, however, do not have what we call exclusive rights. They have a right to remuneration, which is slightly different, meaning that once the recording has been released, the performer, meaning the singer or the guitarist, etc., your artist or a musician, so we classify you as a performer. You as a performer, you do not have the right to then say to a radio station or a party promoter, you cannot play the music that includes my performance on it. The performers have a right to remuneration. Once it is played, you're entitled to some form of payment, but you do not have the right to prevent its use. So that's a right of remuneration, which is separate from the exclusive rights. You with me? Perfect. And so performers, they also have their stream of royalties and income flows as well, quite similar to the producer, except that, and I'll make one distinction, how am I doing with time? Okay, good. For performers, and I love to touch on this, and I see Joan here in the audience. Joan, big up yourself. Joan Webley people. Joan and I have had this conversation. I consider myself a crusader for record producers, unapologetically. All right? Performers also. We use the term artist in a very generic way oftentimes. And when we use it, it is normally used in good spirit and in good sense to represent all of the various players in the process, right? However, there are times when we need to be a bit more specific. Because you'll sometimes hear someone say, well, an artist does not get paid sufficiently from, say, Spotify or from some other source. But it is times like those that you need to then be very clear as to when you say an artist, who are you referring to? Because in the truest sense of the word, an artist an artist in the sense that we know him, the one who holds the mic, they do not get paid by Spotify directly. Spotify has no obligation to the artist or to the actual players of instruments, to the musicians, no obligation to the performers. Spotify gets its right to make this content available, and other digital distributors, they get their right from the master rights owner. The master rights owner, remember, he has the exclusive right to distribute, to make available. The master rights owner is the one who has made it available to the retailers, including Spotify. And it is that person or that entity that Spotify deals with. The artist, the vocalist, the musician, well, the vocalist, the featured performer, the artist, he would have had an arrangement and should have an arrangement with the record producer, the label that he has recorded for. Because that is the route through which he or she will then get their share of what has come through the pipeline from, say, a Spotify or from any retail sale whatsoever. So it's very important, and I see a question, it's very important that artists, when you decide to record for a producer, that you put in place, you ensure that there are arrangements in place for royalty flows from, for instance, sales. So not just record and you run out the studio and you get a file and then you start promoting. If you're serious about your craft as a producer, as an artist, and also as a producer, you put in place proper arrangements. You have recording agreements, you have contracts. That will save a lot of headache for both parties. Yes, spare a lot of unnecessary accusations as well in the process, right?
All right. So do you mean like DistroKid as a distributor? When you're speaking about a producer? Or is that just...
Well, DistroKid is, as you said, is a distributor. Mm-hmm. And so if someone wants to, in fact, DistroKid, in fact, is more akin to an aggregator. You don't necessarily go and buy as a consumer directly from DistroKid. DistroKid makes the content available to the retailers, such as Spotify and iTunes and so forth, those end retailers. So the money flows from those retailers through to DistroKid, whom you've given your content. And DistroKid then passes on your share as the master rights owner. That is how the flow goes, if that's what you're asking.
Okay. And if you want to, say, upload your own music without using like DistroKid or I think
TuneCore, another.
Yeah, TuneCore. Is there something in Jamaica that you can use rather than going through their distributor?
Well, you could start by, if you want to do it in the strictest independent way possible, you could, for instance, set up your own website and make it available in that manner. But in terms of getting your content on those retail platforms, the major retail platforms, the Spotify and so forth, as an individual, if you're not Jay-Z, you're not going to make, that's not going to happen. Full stop.
Yeah.
You have to go through an intermediary. And the truth is a lot of what we call digital distributors, they actually have to go through another intermediary before they get to those retailers. Right? So the answer is no in very simple form. Right? Sure. And then as we wrap, I know Miss Rose is, yes, she needs to get up here as well. You notice I haven't said anything about publishing, and this is very deliberate because it's a very commonly used term, and persons expect me to use the term when an artist or producer is in the midst. Artists and producers have zero entitlement to publishing. Zero. Well, let me explain. Which is why I said definition is so very important, right? Publishing has to do with the rights relating to the songwriters, the composers, the original creators of works. Ms. Chantal spoke about musical works, not the recording, musical works. That is where publishing starts, with the creators. So the lyricists, the songwriters, and the composers, the beat makers, they would have an entitlement immediately to what we call publishing, right? However, a producer may negotiate with somebody who has built a beat for him, for instance, to get a part of own some of the rights to the rhythm. He may negotiate that. When you buy a rhythm from someone, let's say you're an executive producer, and you buy a beat from someone, that buying of the beat does not entitle you to the various rights, to all the rights. What you have gotten is a license to do productions on that beat. As many songs as you want to record on that beat, you can do it. Right? Yes, as many as you want. However, what has not come with the payment you've made are the rights to the underlying, the copyright in the underlying work. So this recording is released, but the composer of the beat, the songwriters, they retain their right, to their copyright to the elements in that final recording, unless otherwise negotiated. And it is those creators who can then go find a publisher, and every time a copy is streamed or downloaded, then a share of the money from that sales, it is broken up across the master rights owner and across publishing. A share of that then goes to the songwriters and composers by way of their publishers and so forth. But that is if you're wearing the cap or have been credited as a songwriter, as a composer. Yes, as an artist, in most cases, and in our culture especially, you happen to be the songwriter also. And so it's really in that context that you would be entitled to publishing, but not when you're wearing your cap solely as an artist or as a producer. So I want you to remember that. If you're entitled to publishing as an artist or as a producer, it's because you're part of the creative process. You're a songwriter or a composer, etc., or you've negotiated a share of the rights. How much sound? Me clear? All right. So I'm going to wrap there. Thank you for your time.
I'm going to ask you to repeat so that our Zoom listeners and our YouTube listeners can hear.
All right. As I was saying, what happens if the executive producer has a musician for hire arrangement with the musicians that he just pay them to play the instruments for him? Do they still, the musicians then, you pay them, then they still has the right to receive publishing?
Yes. Okay. There's in fact no work for hire law in Jamaica surrounding music, actually. That happens in the US, but not in Jamaica. Okay. And so even though it is commonly practiced and said, it's not really what obtains under law, under copyright laws. Okay. So yes, as the executive producer, you can call the musicians for a session, and when they come, and you have Sly on drums and Igbo on keyboard and so forth, the truth is, those persons in that session, they are performers, firstly, when they're playing those instruments, because, no, not creators. They are performers in the first instance, because there may be a composer separately. Igbo, for instance, may have already composed the music, and they're simply playing along to what Igbo has created. So in that session, Igbo is credited as a composer, and Sly and everybody else are musicians, are performers, and that's how it goes out. If, however, there was no composition beforehand, and the producer said, all right, let's play a thing like how Sly and Robbie normally do it or whatever, then these guys, these musicians, these performers will then end up invariably in a lot of our situation, end up creating. Because him start strumming a bass line, and he creates an original bass line, so he's no longer just a performer, he's also a co-writer. And he should be credited as such, and will have publishing as well. So apart from being paid for the session, he will also be entitled to publishing once he's properly credited, on the work. Thank you very much.
Wow, very, very informative. Let's give him another round of applause. Thank you very much. It's a pity we didn't have more time to go a little bit deeper into those discussions. But the program must continue. We must go on, and we have some more very informative presentations to be made. So our next presenter will be speaking on navigating music in the digital age, licensing and royalties. So Edna Manley College, let's make welcome Miss Lydia Rose, General Manager for the Jamaica Association of Composers, Authors, and Publishers.
Okay.
Afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for coming this evening because you could have otherwise gone and be engaged. But I'm really thankful that you have come to partake in this presentation and to learn. I'm happy also to see the interim principal, Mr. Acting Dean, School of Music, Mr. Dorrit Campbell, Andre Hadman. Director of Studies, Jared Baines. Our veteran, Mr. Ibu Cooper. I mean, there is nothing else we can say but to say that he has done it all. My fellow colleague, Mr. Evan Mullins, and from Jam Copy, Ms. Philippa Davis, and one of our hosts today, Chantel English, the Deputy Director, Legal Counsel. So my job today is to speak about navigating the digital world. I call it the world because the entire world has now gone digital. And what we're looking at is not Jamaica in their own corner and the US in their own corner. We are now into this big melting pot where once you upload anything on the internet, it is there for everyone to see. And I know Minister Dunn spoke before and he quotes Bob Marley that one good thing about music is that when it hits you, you feel no pain. But I want to ask if we have, my colleague just spoke about the executive producers. If we have any executive producer in the house, if that song was to be remixed today, I want just 2 examples of what it would be. Anyone? What if you were given the job to remix that song, what would you say in this digital world? You feel pain. Anyone else? All right, so we would actually say that no remuneration leads to pain because we actually create in order to be remunerated, right? So yes, everyone is consuming the music, and yes, you are able to use it to put yourself to sleep, to take yourself out of your miseries. Just focus on things that you don't want to focus on when you hear the music. But the actual creators, and we are going to talk now, because JCAP represents the original creators. And those are the lyricists, the musician, and the publishers. And without them, we must admit, there would be no music industry. Because if you don't have someone creating the music, and I say to my friends, the promoters, but if you do not think that you need a permit, is it that you're going to have a session of poetry? I mean, how do you retain the persons who would come to the session, to the parties, if there really isn't any music added to the lyrics? And so we find that it is very, very important to think about, as Minister Dunn said, the persons in the background. We have ghostwriters. We have persons who just write for writing's sake. We have the musicians who are very important. And without the lyrics and the music coming together, we just would not have any song. So when you create, when I say create the music, the musicians are the persons in our world who creates the score. I could even say those who in our world, really in Jamaica, the person who lick the rhythm. Because that's really... But he would not have been the original creator. Yes, but okay. So the composer of the score, we are calling the person who lit the rhythm or the person who created the music. Okay? If you are able to read a score, that doesn't make you the original composer. All right? So I'm actually speaking in our terms. Okay? So the fact that these are the persons who navigate our world in the digital world, we want to pay homage to them and look at, I'm here to speak about how they would earn in today's world. Because, you know, we have digital world and we have analog world. And Ibo can, when he comes up, will tell us about the analog world, where before you are able to stream and to download, you just have to go to a live concert to hear Ibo. Or you have to buy a CD or some other form of physical device to hear third world. And we are now out of that realm, right? So the most important thing in terms of earning in today's world is actually streaming, download. And we still deal with the analog side, which is public performance. So download as practically, I won't say eliminate, but has taken over from the selling of CDs. Public performance will remain because that's where we have mostly our live events. And to state that JCAP is able to collect on any form of music usage. So recorded music, live music, even music in comedy shows, etc., you do need a permit to be able to use the music. And as Ms. English said, the fact is, it's property. You cannot go into a rental facility and take their car and drive it and then take it back and say, oh, I've used it for 2 days and now I wish to pay you. That doesn't work. So as a property, the act is saying you have to ask for permission to use the music, not after you have used it, because the creators, who are the lyricists and the music composers, they are the original creators, and you need to seek their permission before you use the work. And the way people treat music in our day has totally changed. How much of us just think about where you go and if there was no music? Just bring yourself to a world where no music. Can you? You can't. I mean, we would be like, not bored, we'd be mad. We would be depressed, we would be mad. Because there is nothing to touch our soul to bring us to the other place. You know? And we have to really thank the creators, the persons who use their intellectual property. And as was stated before, they might not have degrees, you know? But that is their work. That is their profession, just as a lawyer, a teacher, a doctor. And we all can't be lawyers, teachers, and doctors, right? That is the profession. And you, the students, are here actually learning the profession so that you can earn, right? And in so doing, you have to take it as a business. You have to sit, you have to think about how can I monetize what I do? Because I heard before where somebody came up with an idea and they just banned it around and it was taken away, right? So you have to seriously think about when you create this form of music or anything that is original, how is it that you're going to monetize? And my colleagues spoke about the distributors and the various ways in which the economic value and the economic right that gives you this exclusive form, how you can earn from it. And I just want, again, to focus on the way of how, in the digital world, we map that. So a lot of you now put your things on YouTube and TikTok. And I'm going to talk about YouTube and TikTok because a person will say, oh, but I have 1 million views and I'm not earning, or I have so much likes. What is it that I'm doing that I'm not doing? Have any of you just sat and read the YouTube business model? Has anybody looked at the YouTube business model? All right. So the YouTube business model speaks to earning based on either your subscription as your channel and getting ads onto those channels. So it doesn't matter what you do or how much you think, and you tell all your friends, go and like my this and go and like my that, and you know, unless you get a business entity or otherwise to actually come onto your channel or to just ensure that there's some form of ad placement, you will not earn. So that is the monetization that you need to keep in mind when you are just uploading onto these platforms. But you can earn because there's a way, and if you keep to what you're doing and ensure that what you're doing is of value, or you can go and make partnership with business. I mean, businesses, if you tend to have 1 million likes, etc., and it's just going up and going, they will seek you out. You don't have to seek them out. They will seek you out. And it's also come down to branding. How do you brand yourself? How do you let the public out there, the global community out there know that you are on this platform and that you have a value? So that is what you have to, that craft you're going to have to work on. And then we look at the protection that the Copyright Act gives in the form of public performance. So for JCAP, we license the work, as was stated before. We give a blanket license. So you're able to use any work that is in our repertoire. And through reciprocals, we have agreement. As you can understand, in every country in the world, they would have similar collective management organization that represents their creators. So through reciprocals, we are able to represent persons in Jamaica when their music is played. And persons will say, but Michael Jackson has died. Why, if I play his music, why do I have to? You know, and I'm only going to play Prince and Michael Jackson. So I don't have to pay. But remember, they have an estate, right? And they would have joined similar CMOs. And again, we go back to the business. So when you join JCAP, you're able to assign a successor member, which means that even if your song don't make a hit today, and you might not be around to hear that your song has made an hit, but it might make a hit 20 years' time, 30 years' time. We come to this most important, another form of earning, which we call sampling, where you have the persons who are doing their thing now and very popular and making a lot of money, that they can sample one of your songs, like what happened to one of our members, right? Not only that, we have a better one, which is not really known. But when Kanye West did, I can't remember the song, but I'll go to Controller by Drake. And when they do these samples, the person would have come back and said, but I've earned more money from this sample, than I've earned being in the music industry for 40 years. Right? So what I'm getting at is quality of content is king. Make good music so that it was stated before that copyright is 95 years after the death. And it's not after the death of one person, it's after the death of the last person who have an interest in the song. Right? So we have where, if it is the gentleman that is in Rolling Stones. Love to dance, Mick Jagger. All their songs, they can still earn and their estate will earn until the last person have died. And it still runs for them, and for us it will be 95 years. So there's a lot of ways if we own our skills and look at earning as a songwriter, a composer, executive producer, whatever creative process you go in. Just tell your parents that, Mommy, I can make a lot of money. Right? If I own my skills and take it as a business and look at it as this is my job. Right? It's just like the minister came 15 minutes early. But you have persons who they have a gig to do, and I'm sure Ibu would have been early at most of his gigs. And then they walk in 20 minutes late. And they walk in with an entourage, and, you know, and the respect. So I'm saying to you, young persons, always be early for your job, because it's a job. Respect the person who will be paying you the money to perform. If you go in the studio, ensure that contracts, which is the next thing I'm coming to, contractual arrangements are done, even if it's on the spot. A lot of persons, and I say to people, do it in the studio, because when you leave, and if the song becomes a hit, nobody remember that I gave the hook. Nobody remember that I played a little piece that gave it the flavor. Right? We all just want to say, okay, but I made it do this and I made it do that. No. So even if it is to just write it down and have everybody sign to it, right? But contracts, and before the question was asked about we buy the rhythm. I get that almost every day at the office. You buy a rhythm, you don't own the rhythm. You don't own the rights, and everyone has explained it. But I just want to go further. A contract, you can have a contract where the person relinquish all rights to you, if that's what you want. But it has to be in the form of a contract. You can't just say, okay, I'm paying this person $1 million. Take the rhythm, go and produce it, come up with this lovely song that is making a bag of money, and then you end up in court. And credits, that's another thing. The credits are critical. Because in the international market now, I think there is, I know that there is now a time period for when credits are recognized. So if you create a song and 20 years down the line and the song becomes a big hit, you're going to come back and say, oh, but I made it play the rhythm and I am not earning and my name is not there. In today's digital world, you will continue not earning. Right? So whatever it is which goes back to the studio, agree on the percentages that you earn, and that you all would say, okay, I'm getting 10, etc. And ensure that when the credits are going out, your name is there. And that's how a publisher becomes very important. Because the publisher now would take your song and actually register it across all platforms. Which again is one of the things that we miss out on. So we create all of these songs and they're not out there properly registered, properly in the public domain with the proper credits on it. So if Nicki Minaj wants a song to use and they heard it on TikTok or YouTube, but then they can't find you. They don't know really who owns the song. How do you benefit? You don't. So these are the important things that you need to look about. Sorry, you were asking a question for the longest while.
Yes, hi. All right, so very specific to exactly what you're speaking about. Yes, For the third time. All right. So, again, very specific, right? I had a friend who produced a track for an artist, a dancehall artist, and they didn't do a contract. Mm-hmm. However, they had their beat tag on the song. Mm-hmm. So, in that regard, right, he was basically complaining that the song was a hit, a huge dancehall hit, and he didn't get any payouts for the song. For now, if he wanted to, say, collect his share of the money, could he still do so because he had the beat tag and the original creation of the beat?
Yes, he can, but he now needs a lawyer.
Okay.
Right, so he know he's going to have to spend money to get his money.
Yeah.
While if before he had done it as a business, look at it as a business, protect his interest, because it's protecting your interest, then he would have signed off from in the studio. And then he would have ensured that when the song was going out, his credit would have been there.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
But he still can.
So he still can get his money.
Still can, but he now needs a lawyer.
But, so it's, as you're saying, it's very important to ensure.
Very important.
Your credits is there.
Very, very important. And because we are now in the digitized world, piracy is like so much. Anything you put up, someone can take it and use it. So you have to protect yourself. So in wrapping up, I will just say, internationally, the music business uses streaming to measure success. And I've spoken about that. So you have the streaming platform. And I need to ask this question. What is streaming to you? How do you define streaming? Good question, right? Yeah, man. How you define streaming? What is streaming to you? Right, but not right there. I'm asking, so you go on Spotify and so forth. And this is what I'm saying. If you're in the business, you need to just focus and learn these business things. So streaming, so you go on Spotify, and then the difference between streaming and download. So download, as I said, we call it mechanical license. That's when you actually pay, go on Apple, you buy a song, and you download it to any form, to your computer, etc. And you are able to listen to it continuously because you now own that. Streaming now, you only have access for a small time. You have a playlist. You can create a playlist, but you haven't bought. You haven't bought the songs. Right? And the difference between buying and just listening, it makes a big difference to the creator. Right? Because in terms of the points and how much money is paid, they get more out of buying. And we want you to support, because buying, you own. Streaming, you're listening. It's public performance, really. Right? You go to a party, you listen. Right? And then you go home. But if you go on and you download, that's how our creators, they can say, okay, they are now have a platinum record and a gold record. It's not because of streaming. It's based on what has been purchased. Right? So that is very important. All right, so I just, in consideration of time, I'll just wrap up by saying, in 2029, streaming collectively represents 79% of all recorded music. Online parties can work, but we are still working through the complexity of how to monetize to the benefit of the creators. Because in terms of online parties, that the model has not yet come up on how to earn from that. Of course, you know we earn from media houses, TVs, etc., through the license that JCAP normally provide. So I just want to leave with you that music is everywhere, but we take it for granted. So after today, let's not take it for granted. The creative process has a value. And we must remember that the exclusive rights that the law gives to our creators make their work a property. So the rights is not just a right, it is a property right, which is extremely valuable to all our creators. Thank you.
All right, thanks very much for your presentation, Mrs. Rose. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, I see that we are eager to ask the questions, but as Mr. Ivo Cooper is signaling, we have to restrict the questions going forward because we're running out of time very, very fast. So we want to get through with the remaining presentations. And what I'll invite you to do is to stay back. We do have a few refreshments on the outside, and then you can have conversations with our presenters or panelists. And I'm sure they'll be most willing to accommodate your questions at that time. Am I right, panelists? Everybody good with that? All right. So to make a quick presentation, I'm going to invite Miss Philippa Davies, the Assistant General Manager for the Jamaican Copyright Licensing Agency, JAM Copy, to come at this time.
Master of Ceremonies, go ahead, Ms. Davis. Ladies and gentlemen, what has happened is that there is a class in here at 4. The lecturer is here. And so it's not like we can drag on the thing. You get me? There was a limited time and we have actually gone over the time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dixon. Good afternoon, everyone. From the academic, administrative, managerial, creative, and performance worlds of music, if I could summarize everyone together like that. Just to tell you a little bit, I won't be here long, about one of the 3 collective management organizations in Jamaica, CMO. You've heard from JAMS and JCAP. There's also JAM Copy, which stands for the Jamaican Copyright Licensing Agency. And we are specializing in text and image-based works. So text, not sending the quick WhatsApp, but we mean literary works, and image-based meaning illustrations, photographs, designs. So just think about your regular textbook. You would have the words giving the instruction, and then you might have an accompanying photograph or illustration and design. So whereas JAMS and JCAP are focusing on music creation and its performance, we are representing authors and publishers of journals, of textbooks, of what we call trade books, novels, a collection of poetry, photographs, illustration. Those are the persons that we represent. But also, if you put out a book of musical composition, so the scores, not the individual single page, but if you have compiled all of your creations over a period of time and you put out a book of musical scores, you can also join JAM Copy. We follow the same cycle of activity as the other 2 CMOs. We obtain mandates, meaning that we go after the authors and publishers, or they come to us and they give us the authorization to act on their behalf. We then license the users, and our users are UE, UTEC, Edna Manley, short with Teachers College, all of the public primary and secondary schools under the Ministry of Education. So just about, say, 95% of all the educational institutions in Jamaica. We then collect the licenses and then we distribute them as royalties. So the same flow of activities as our colleagues, JCAP and JAMS. Now, I would say to you that not only, as Chantal spoke about, protecting your work, or rather having some sort of corroborative evidence that you are the author of a particular work. Not only can you go to JIPO and do that voluntary registration, but let me also put a plug for the National Library of Jamaica. It is actually required under law that if you have published a literary work, musical work in Jamaica, you're required to deposit a copy with the National Library of Jamaica for historical, heritage, archival purposes. So you are required to deposit a copy with them. But that's also a way of you having some sort of evidence to say, I wrote this, I'm claiming authorship, here's a copy with the NLJ. And also the fact that you have your work published and available on the market, and that by joining one of the 3 CMOs. We've also heard them say how important it is to put things in writing. I underscore that, endorse that wholly. Put things in writing from day one. But let me also drop another suggestion here. Make a will. Now, some people think that if you write a will, you're going to die tomorrow. Not so, you know, not so. But it is good to put things in writing because your rights last for your lifetime plus 95 years after in Jamaica. Your works may continue to earn for you, and you could bequeath them to your estate, your beneficiaries, whoever you want to. So put it in writing as well through making a will. So I think that just summarizes what we do, like the other 2 SMOs, but we are dealing with the authors and publishers of text and image-based works. Thank you very much.
Wonderful and well put together. I do hope you do stay back as well so we can have further conversations with you. And at this time, ladies and gentlemen, I invite to the podium a man who needs no introduction, the most famous person here at the Edna Manley College. I probably should have a college name after him after this. Mr. Ibo Cooper himself. Let's make him welcome. He'll be speaking on insider tips on lasting in the music industry and how intellectual property has aided in his success. Let's make him welcome.
Master of Ceremonies, I'm sorry, but actually there was supposed to be a performance before that. So I'd actually taken the mic to introduce the performer. So I'll just go ahead.
All right, no problem.
I'm going to ask the persons from CFP please to stand. For the last 6 months, I've been involved with an organization called Creatives for Peace. Creatives for Peace. Our first activity that we completed Friday gone is a song contest. Well, a contest, a performing contest. But it eventually ended up being singers and DJs mainly. And on Friday we had a winner, a second place and a third place. The winner got $200,000, the second place got $100,000, and the third place got $50,000. We're sponsored by Violence Prevention Association, Popeyes, but the brains behind the whole thing is the lady standing in the middle in the cream shirt. That's Mrs. Paula Surtees, and she owns Island Coffees. It is Island Coffee's brainchild, and she has been the backbone behind it all. I joined because I realized how sincere and passionate she was about this whole business of peace, because in the very first week, right, one of the very promising semifinalists was shot at only 18 years of age. And I saw how it tore her apart. I'm saying, what, I'm going to join this. And so we are committed to clean lyrics, we are committed to uplifting lyrics, and we're committed to try to make a move in Jamaica for peace. We have been assisted by the Edna Manley College and hope to go forward with assisting these untrained musicians the way you guys are getting formal training, but talented and creative nevertheless. And Mr. Adman, I'm going to come talk to you when we're done about some ideas so we can see how we can move forward. So the winner is going to perform one song. Mr. Fogg, are you ready with the track? This is Mr. K. Palmer.
Evelyn. Rhythm. Creative for Peace. Oh no. no, no. Yeah, yeah. Eh. I cry for the youths in the ghetto who want suffer every day, and to homeless on the street, yeah, who don't have nowhere to sleep. Them out there struggle so hard just to achieve. Yeah. Some a wipe off car glass, some a sell back juice, some a sell sweetie. We hungry. You know, she say we hungry. Government, we hungry. You know, she say we hungry. Government. So I cry for you, yeah. It hurt me to my heart to see what I want. Jah know it grieve me. Sufferation not tear down the place like a storm. And it not easy. They don't feel the pain we feel. Oh, no, no, no. So many homeless kids without meals. Oh, no. Them out there struggle so hard just to achieve something. Some a wipe off car glass, some a sell bang juice, some a sell sweetie. We hungry. You know, she say we hungry. Governments, we hungry. You know, she say we hungry. Governments, so I cry for you. I cry for my people. I will die for my people. Take a walk down a town and you see the youths them hungry. Crossroad, the whole grown about. The youths them hungry. 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 We hungry. We hungry. We hungry. We hungry. The youths them hungry. The youths them hungry. The youths them hungry. The youths them hungry. Yeah, yeah, we hungry. And she say we hungry. Love or no, love or no. Love or no.
Okay. What's the time, please? All right. I am going to contribute my time now to the question and answer. I will promise you that I will speak with Mr. Adman about a part 2, because it's so much information that I really want to soak. Right? But I know you have burning questions, right? So since the panelists have a limited time with us, please pose your questions now. Yeah, come for the mic, man. Come for the mic. Yeah, I know you're hungry, Bev, but it's all right.
Maybe it has turned now into some clarification and not necessarily a question, but you had mentioned the difference between streaming and downloading. And downloading, when you said downloading means that you are now the owner of that particular item that you download, right? But then probably need to make some clarifications to persons that not because you download it means you can use it and do anything because you're now an owner. All right, so I get to understand it in my head when I thought about it afterwards, so I wanted to just share that.
Please remember that when you, just like if you go back to the old days, if you buy a CD, it's yours, but it's for personal use. And my colleague has spoken before that if you now take that and then you have the public to enjoy, then you have gone into public performance, right? So anything you buy, it is only for your personal use.
Okay, good afternoon. I had a question regarding songwriters. One to Jam Copy first. If you have been writing for a while and you have quite a collection of songs that you have written down, would we have to reprint them or bind them? How would we get them to you to get them under that protection?
Right. Thank you very much for the question. So what we license are published works. So if you put together those lyrics and you publish a book and it's available to the public, and persons may buy a copy and maybe they take it to school and they might make some copies in the class for use, that is when a license from Jam Copy would be needed. So it has to be a printed work, hard copy, available to the public, and then the public might be making photocopies of extracts of the work. So we wouldn't be assisting you to put together your book and then to print and then sell. It's only after it is made available to the public for sale. All right, thanks.
Okay. What about when you download a rhythm off of like YouTube, like rhythm like Punani, and you don't have to pay for it, you just download it free and use it? Huh?
All right, so if somebody's work that's the same, even it's on YouTube, the work was created by someone or a group of persons. So there are still persons behind the scenes who own the rights to it. So even though it's available to be downloaded freely, in terms of its use, especially if we're going to make a commercial release of that song now that you've put together, especially in that context, you really should get permission from the person who owns the rights to the rhythm in order to then complete that recording and release it commercially. So we're talking about some persons have what they call, and it's a practice within our industry where once you're not making any change at all to the rhythm, if you're going to use the rhythm as is, there's a thing called copyright control, which persons make that practice where you simply record on it, put copyright control, and you release it. The truth is that is not the best practice. That's not really how it ought to be. You should find the owner of the rhythm itself, the original creators of the rhythm, and seek their permission in order to record it and release it. So even though it's available freely on YouTube to download, you still really should get permission from the owners.
Okay, cool.
And just to add to that,
but what if you're not you're not recording on it, you're just performing on it?
That's not a problem. If if it's just like if you go to a party and you're just performing, right? That is not, you're not doing it for anything commercial, right? So it allows you to do that, and then the owners would then get paid once a permit was issued. If you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, cool.
But I wanted to add to what was said before that if you just take the rhythm and use it, and for whatever purpose, please remember that as a property, the owners can tell you to, if you put it up wherever you put it, to take it down, right? They can also, if you put it in stores to sell, they can also ask that you take it off the shelves. And they can turn around. If it is something that is popular and making really out there, they can claim 100% of that song, so you don't earn. right? So you have to ensure that you seek clearance. It doesn't matter how simple it is. Seek clearance because you don't know how far that song can go. All right?
And please note that many of these rhythms that you download from the internet have an audio stamp. So halfway down the rhythm, you hear somebody come in and say, "This is Michael here, right?" The rhythm, "This is Michael here, right?"
Yeah, this is not identical. Good day. What I have to say that suppose, like for instance, you're like in a few videos on YouTube, even though he's an artist and whatever, and it's like been selling over the world whatsoever, or you can claim for that, like into it.
Your personal video?
No, like a next person, but they get you to put in that video.
Or you have been acting in the video, or you are giving the song for the video?
I've acted in the video.
All right, that's a contract business.
Okay.
That's a contract arrangement, right? I've done the contract class already, and some people were there, but I can repeat. But many of those questions I'm hearing, I will do another class where I will tell you that protecting yourself before you start with a document can answer a lot of your questions. Because it's a negotiable thing, right? So if me in a business and we start out, even the person was talking about job work, you get what I'm saying? You know, some musicians are going to say, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to play, you're going to pay us now, and this and that. And it's a document, that's it. I know traditionally some things were not being practiced, but we have to practice them from now on.
Okay, so you spoke about rights and royalties for recorded performances and for public performances. But what about live performances? Is somebody like Rihanna, let's say, able to perform a Shensia song without needing permission from her?
Okay, as the person who did that a lot with Third World, we do what is called a playlist. The promoters used to have us do a playlist. Okay? And even though the promoter paid us to play the gig, the promoter has to also pay for the songs on the playlist. Now that includes our songs. You see? And when I came back to Jamaica and advised on practices like that, a lot of people thought, well, go away with your foreign business. I'm not joking. But now I'm noticing it is more in vogue. A lot of people were objecting back in the day, you know, where jams are charged for and where JIPO are charged for. So people are now understanding, right? The source of the music is the man under the tree with him guitar who has that skill to come up with that clever melody. Right? It's his job. And whether he have a degree or not, he needs to be paid for the fact that he can do that. And then brother who may be a brain surgeon don't have that skill. Nothing wrong with the brain surgeon because the songwriter don't have the brain surgeon skill, but the brain surgeon don't necessarily have the songwriter skill. And so he needs to be paid. So I'm in Italy, for example, and my playlist goes 96 Degrees in the Shade, Try Your Love, rah, 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 rah. I must, but you put your song on the list. Yes, the promoter will pay for the use of those songs because my publisher, she said, is going to collect.
All right, good afternoon.
Just before you chime in, could I just maybe add something to that, Ibo, in response? So the live performance of, say, Ariana, I'm going to use a different example. Taurus Riley, for instance, has done a cover of a Michael Jackson song. I don't remember the title at the moment. But when Taurus Riley goes on stage and he performs that song live, a set list would have been created which stipulates or indicates that particular song title and the various particulars, which then gets passed on to JCAP. Right. Because JCAP represents the estate of the writer, which would be Michael Jackson. And so part of the fee which comes from that event, whether it's Sumfest or whichever live event, gets paid to some JCAP, which then gets passed on through to the estate of the original writer, which would have been Michael Jackson, in this case, his estate. So there is a process and there's a mechanism for covering live performances of other people's works.
And in the interest of time, I know the CMOs did not mention this. It's not that they were not going to, but they were trying to think. Your local CMO collects all the money for everybody all over the world and then send it to the relevant CMOs. You get it? Yeah.
Yes, yes, good afternoon.
Okay, pertaining to a live performance, and you're using a rhythm from YouTube, but at the same time within that performance is being streamed live. How do you deal with licensing, or is that streaming is legit in that essence?
If you did not clear the rhythm, quite a few times you see you get a notification from YouTube to say and you get your strikes, etc. Right? So if you did not clear and you just use that rhythm and then you're performing and you upload it and stream it, then you are going to get a strike. Okay?
All right, people, I promise you a part 2. We definitely are right in front of Mr. Morris' class. So we're going to take one from the international reggae period. I think the band should have been on stage already. I don't know what I'm waiting for. International reggae is why I name it so. It's after Bob Marley, Boss. And during that time, the conscious reggae music took the world by storm. In England, institutionalized racism was a big topic. And one of the groups that emerged out of Britain was Steel Pulse. And so we're going to have Amelia King cover Steel Pulse to wrap up the program.
Stepping out, stepping out, stepping out, stepping out. Open sesame, here comes Rastaman. Abracadabra, catch me if you can. I know you find it hard to believe that I am the genie of your lamp, and I can do anything you wish, but right now I'm commanding you to dance. Stepping out, stepping out, stepping out, stepping out. Invisible music, beam me up to the rhythm of sound. Will me this, yeah. You cannot see it nowhere on earth. Can this reggae be found? I said, I know you find it hard to believe that I am the genie of your lamp, and I can do anything you wish, but right now I'm commanding you to dance. Stepping out, 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 stepping out.
Check, check, check. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the saying goes, all good things must come to an end. And regrettably, we have come to the end of part 1 in the 2-part series. according to Mr. Cooper, of the Sound of Success, the Intellectual Property and the Music Industry Masterclass. We want to thank you so much for participating today, for your presence, both in person and those joining us online. We certainly appreciate you. I trust that everyone present also took the time out to enter the competition. Let me see the hands of those who entered. On a serious? Like, on a serious note, when I get free food with two of Jamaica's legends, Marcy Griffiths and Tony Rebel, and you know enter? In a serious life? In a real life? All right, so let me go through it quickly. So, how you enter is, let me go back to it. I just had it up here. No, man, no, still can't enter, man. I was told to still have you enter. All right, so what you need to do, you have to go online, right? And you have to, where's Kelsey? Kelsey, come and break it down quickly for me. The website is the www.jipo.gov.jm. Go to that website.
All right, so you actually don't need to go to the website. So you're going to go to our Facebook page or Instagram page. You're going to like it. You're going to take a selfie before you leave the room or before you leave the stream, right? And you're going to post it and tag us. That's it. And then we'll do a random draw. And then the winner will get lunch valued up to $10,000 with Marcia Griffiths and Tony Rebel. Okay?
You get to choose what to get. Yeah. All right. So, I don't see the phones whipping out yet.
Kelsey, is that one lunch with both artists or two lunches? Two separate lunch. So one person will be at lunch with Marcia and one person will be at lunch with Tony Rebel.
No, that's a good question, boss, because if you come together as a group, as a band, I think that might be considered. But take a selfie of yourselves right now, of you being here at the event, and those who are streaming live, you can take a selfie of you on the live. You're going to go to the JIPO Facebook and or the JIPO Instagram page, and you're going to post it. Well, you're going to post it on your Instagram or on your Facebook page, and you're going to tag JIPO. All right? So it's at JIPO Online.
All right, good people.
And then from there,
sorry, boss.
They'll be choosing.
Sorry, we didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
No problem. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, there are some refreshments outside. Please remember, we really don't allow eating in here. And any further questions with our panelists, please take it outside because Mr. Murray there for him class.